Welcome to the HIT podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we are dropping into your feed on Tuesdays with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, well-curated conversations going on in the space. This week's episode will be no exception. I'm very excited for this. So without any further ado, this week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And let's get right into it with Rachel. Rachel, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. So long story short, we want to get into ArmadaCare and some of the solutions, but let me just ask you real quick to kind of give me a high-level tour of who's Rachel? How'd you get in the chair?
Oh, goodness. That's a long story. How much time do we have?
15-minute episodes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. My name is Rachel Rutherford. I've been at ArmadaCare for 8 years now, and I actually came from accounting. So I was a CPA for 5 or 6 years, took a little career break, and then decided sales was really my calling. And somehow this is, the rest is
Yeah.
history, as they say.
Yeah, so now you're at ArmadaCare, and for folks that maybe don't know, give us like the high level on ArmadaCare, because we often get asked about executive benefits or sort of compensation for different classes of employees. And we have turned to you. We don't have any, financial affiliation. We just found you guys to be a decent solution. And so want to kind of get you out there as we find good vendors in the space and kind of go evangelizing for different companies. So maybe, tell me a little bit about you guys.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for that. We really appreciate it. ArmadaCare, our company, is a specialty insurance company that really focuses on quote unquote executive medical plans. So executive benefits, you already mentioned it, is something that people get asked about a lot, but most of the time when clients are asking about executive benefits, the go-to is executive life, executive disability, maybe some other type of like tax preferred, deferred comp arrangements. We're a very niche type of executive benefit called executive medical. And basically it's a supplemental medical reimbursement plan that groups put in place on top of their primary plan that can be carved out by class. So they decide who are their key employees, who's the leadership, who are the people that are driving the business. We want to enhance their medical and wellness offering to remain competitive in the marketplace. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, when you say kind of by class, I think that that's one of the interesting things, because I think folks get a little worried about like discrimination laws surrounding insurance. Can you talk to me about the flexibility with your guys' product that people have to say, I specifically want to offer it to these 8 guys or these 12 guys and gals, these folks, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's something I hear all the time. Obviously, when we start talking about any type of discriminatory, quote unquote, medical plan, flags go up, right? So I often hear this not only from the employee benefit consultants that we work with, but also from, HR leaders within our clients themselves. So just to give a high level overview on the background around compliance and executive medical, many people thought that these types of plans went away when the Affordable Care Act was passed many, many years ago. In fact, there were lots of vendors in the space pre-ACA, including ArmadaCare. We've been around for 20 years, so we predated ACA, but almost all of our competitors exited the market with ACA. It wasn't because they were discriminatory, though. It was because of the chassis that they were on and the structure that they had. Meaning, number one, those were self-funded plans, so they were a little bit questionable to begin with. If anybody's listening remembers ExecuCare, that was a huge player in the game. Lincoln Financial was their carrier. They pulled it for compliance concerns because it was self-funded. Our plan, by contrast, is strictly a fully insured product from start to finish. And that is how we've remained compliant pre-ACA and post-ACA.
Yeah. So, and when you talk about that, as you said, you've been around for 20 years, you guys have lots and lots of clients, and you are comfortable saying you can carve out people. You can say, hey, I just want this specific class of employee to get this benefit. When we talk about the benefit, tell me a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, so it's a supplemental medical reimbursement plan. So it's 100% employer paid, group sponsored. They come in and they decide what class they want to offer this to. Class can be a whole host of different things. It could be based on title, tenure, salary, some type of performance incentive, whatever the group wants. And that is their defined class. Our plan sits on top of the primary medical plan and will reimburse these employees for any 213D, virtually any 213D eligible expenses. So anything that's considered an HSA or FSA eligible expense, that's what ArmadaCare covers, up to some very high dollar limits. So as an example, one of our most popular plans is Diamond. The annual family maximum on that is $100,000. So it's much more substantial than
So
any
let me just
other.
pause you right there because I don't want that part to get lost. It is $100,000 of money that can go towards, and when you talk about this class, let me break that down. You guys say, hey, we're going to layer on top of whatever the medical plan is, this
Mhm.
sort of reimbursement bank to pay co-pays, deductibles, co-insurances, and even a bunch of stuff maybe even not covered by your medical, right? Chiro, acupuncture, all sorts of things, to where when you make the bank that big, it becomes almost impossible for these members to have any out-of-pocket expenses for their healthcare at all. I mean, hey, yeah, our medical plan covers X and leaves you Y, but our ArmadaCare comes in and not only does it make sure you don't have any expenses on that plan, but it's got this whole slew of other things you might be doing, executive wellness, kind of deep physical routine sort of stuff. So I just really want to punctuate that again, because that has been the success that we've seen, where it's like, hey, you've got these, couple gripey executives at your company, and you've got super rich plans, and everyone else knows you have super rich plans, but they go to this out of network, Reiki guy or something, right? And it's like, hey, I don't want you to have to incur a bill for that.
Yeah, it is important to note, and it's an interesting dynamic that I've seen play out from when I first started here, 8 years ago until now. It used to be we were more of a gap plan, right? Like everybody associates us with a gap plan and a supplemental plan that covers all the things that you just mentioned. The shift in how I see our members utilize our plan, even really over the past 2 to 3 years, has been enormous. So it used to be this was, we were reimbursing for things that the primary medical plan, the gaps in the medical coverage. Now it's more preventative, it's wellness. People are going out and seeing concierge physicians, which we can cover in certain circumstances. They're getting very thorough, detailed executive physicals and taking that to their primary care physician. And I think it's a really important trend that I wish would continue throughout the whole country, right? It would make more sense for us to start to look at healthcare as healthcare and wellness care versus sick care, right? Which is the transition that we've really seen. And I think it starts with leadership. When we see leadership doing it, then the rest will follow. So hopefully that's something that we'll see ongoing.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's a fully insured program and it's 100% paid by the employer. So the employer carves out these few executives. They say, hey, we're going to pay for this benefit for you. We're going to roll this thing out. Now I'm sitting around here hearing you talk, and I'm talking about, 100 grand per head type of a thing. And obviously I think some people listening might kind of take a step back. Because it's fully insured, it has to be underwritten. And because everybody's different, prices can vary. But can you give me like a range or a dart or like a, hey, look, everyone's different, caveat, caveat. But if you're
Yep.
listening to this and you're loosely interested, we're not talking 100 grand per head per year. We're talking closer to
No.
X or Y.
No, yes, it is fully insured. We don't expect people to hit $100,000 per year. In fact, we would probably be underwater if they did. On average pricing, if we're looking at a composite premium, right? So taking a step back, ArmadaCare matches the enrollment tier for the primary medical plan. So you'll see a different rate for somebody that's a single employee versus those that are family. But a composite rate between employee, spouse, children, family is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 per year.
Yeah.
Tax efficient. So that's before taxes. After taxes, an employer might expect to pay, depending on the tax rate, $7,000, $8,000.
Yeah. And so that's $500-$600 a month type of a thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of like, hey, I've carved out these couple employees that are super key to our world, and we're paying an extra $500-$600 a month for them to have this medical care that gives them somewhere where like you're not gonna have any expenses anymore. So stop complaining about, going to the
Yeah.
doctor or whatever. We've talked a little bit about the medical piece of it, and even the executive physical and the concierge doctors in some cases. But it extends, dental, vision. Talk to me about kind of some of the creative places and interesting spots that you've seen folks file claims.
Yeah, well, that goes back to I'm just seeing it being used far more frequently as a preventative and wellness plan versus a sick plan these days. So, the nice thing about being governed by Section 213D in the tax code is it is so expansive. If
Yeah.
there is it really comes down to whether or not there is a medical necessity for any, treatment that's being done. So, for example, um, chronic back pain. You're an executive, you're very sedentary, you're sitting at a desk all the time, chronic low back pain, right? You're going to a chiropractor and you're really trying to manage this back pain. If you're able to get a letter of medical necessity, things like massage therapy would be an eligible expense under ArmadaCare. So there's just a lot of different creative ways that we're seeing our members use it.
Yeah. So as you said, like, hey, you get a doctor that says, this guy's got some back pain, he needs massages. Now all of a sudden your massages are paid for.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
And I touched on dental a moment ago, but I'd love for you to dive into stuff outside of the medical world as well, so that people can kind of wrap their heads around, beyond just creative medical type stuff, but dental, vision, any of those types of products.
All of those are eligible expenses. So if we really look at a breakdown of our utilization kind of in a pie chart, it would typically be about a third are things that are quote unquote medical in nature. So things that a primary medical plan would touch, those deductibles, copays, et cetera. About 20% and growing, significantly growing, is prescriptions. So we do provide a prepaid RX card to all of our members at implementation and onboarding. And that's because RX is one of those things that tends to be very high volume but low dollar expenses. So it's just far easier for us to provide an RX card than for them to have to submit claims for everything.
Yeah.
But RX is a huge pocket of what we reimburse. Dental is right next door to it. So 20 to 25%. That's going to be things like adult and child orthodontia, Invisalign, crowns, bridges. Implants are so darn expensive.
Yeah.
All of those would be eligible.
And most people's dental plan, if it's a PPO, and sorry to jump in, it might have an annual max. Maybe it's 1,000 or 2,000. Maybe it's real rich and it's 3,000, 5,000, right? Very few plans are unlimited. So you have a member that hits their, call it $2,000, annual dental max, they might still be incurring dental claims. And yet again, you guys layer in and go, look, as I told you before on the medical, you're not going to incur healthcare expenses, right?
Yeah, and that is an impactful statement to people. I get so much feedback from our clients and our members when we're doing onboardings that the most popular phrase I hear is this was a really unexpected benefit.
Yeah.
People expect compensation because they're doing a job. They expect bonuses.
It's very
and
Don Draper of you. That's
Yeah,
what the money's for.
That's right. That's what the money's for. One of my favorite quotes of all time. But yeah, that's expected. For somebody to be able to come in and say you and your family should have no out-of-pocket costs whatsoever, that's unexpected. And it's a really powerful statement by an employer to show somebody how valued they are. And that's why we really see a huge improvement in retention of key employees as compared to the national average. We've done a big study on our book of business and can see significant improvement in that. So one of my proud statistics.
Yeah, and obviously, we're out there telling our clients, hey, if you're interested in this, as health insurance brokers, and so it's like, hey guys, if you're out there, you reach out to me, I can put you in touch with ArmadaCare, reach out to your broker about it. But the idea of this recruitment retention tool coming in and layering on top of whatever all else you got going on, paycheck, time off, PJs, whatever you got, right? So I appreciate that. Anything that we haven't touched on before we get us out, or you think we covered most of it, or how do you feel on our content?
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it. We've covered a lot of the high level concepts. Obviously, there's a lot to dive into. If anybody's interested, reach out. The one thing that I will say, given the timing of, I'm not sure when the podcast is going to come out, but we can start the first of any month. So as it relates to like, when does it make sense to get a quote like this? really anytime. Obviously, 1/1 is right around the corner. So this is sort of our busy season. And
Yeah.
it's definitely not too late for a 1/1 start date.
Yeah.
Uh,
So in other words, it
yeah, that's
tends to coincide. And when you say 1/1, you're talking about January 1st, and that's because that's when a lot of group employee benefits plans renew, but not all of them. But you're saying that
not
it's
all of them.
often something that's rolled out in conjunction with the plan year, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. You can have this conversation off cycle. You can bring kind of executives in, and you can do it whenever it makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. And we can sync up with the primary plan later on. So
Yep.
now's a great time to be talking about it. If there's any plan design changes that are happening at renewal and you're getting some discomfort or noise from leadership, this might be a really good way to put a band-aid on that conversation.
Yeah, put a free Band-Aid on it. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
One paid for by Armada. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Rachel, for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your
Thank you for
time.
having me. I appreciate it too.
Yes, definitely. And thank you guys for watching. Join us next week. Join us every week. Thank you to our sponsors, TrueHue. Thank you guys. And until next week, make this the best week yet.